Hey there, students. Thank you for making it to this presentation. Today we're going to focus on U.S. government, and we're looking at Unit 2, which is branches and levels of government. And our focus for this presentation is the judicial branch tutorial. Please make sure that you are using a notebook in order to take notes. This will help you answer all of the questions that we are going to encounter in this particular tutorial. And the objective for this lesson is that you will examine the structure and power of the judicial branch. When we talk about the judicial branch, we are specifically talking about the court system. This is page 11 of the judicial branch tutorial. And you have an assignment here in which you have this box here, and in the box you have a picture of the judicial branch. And you also have another picture of the other branches, in this case, the president as well as the Congress. All you're doing here is basically grabbing these tiles here and plugging them where they belong. For example, the judicial branch interprets the Constitution. So I move that tile and place it right there. And you do that same thing for the other tiles here. You put them where they belong. We are now on page 25 of the judicial branch tutorial. This activity is very similar, actually almost the same as the previous one we just reviewed. You have the image here of the U.S. Constitution and the constitutional courts. Then you have the legislative branch here. And all you're doing here is you are moving the tiles where they belong. In this case, let me move the U.S. Supreme Court because it belongs here to the constitutional courts. And you'll do the same thing for the other tiles, and make sure that you are plugging them where they belong in order to get credit for this assignment. Let's move on. We are now on page 30 of the judicial branch tutorial. We're looking at the lesson activity, the court system. And the directions say, read the instructions for this self-check activity, type in your response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of the activity, write a brief evaluation. Please make sure you read these directions here, and because I know what they're asking you to do already, you need to create basically a PowerPoint presentation or a Microsoft Word visual or a Google presentation to create an assignment in which you need to explain how the federal and state court systems actually work. You need to be able to put the different layers. For example, on the federal side, you begin with the Supreme Court, and then you provide in a visual format how the other courts underneath the Supreme Court, and you do the same thing for the state courts. Make sure that you are presenting all of the information accurately. Make sure that you go back and review the tutorial or the pages before this particular page in order to get more information if need be. You can also use the internet in order to find answers to this particular question here. By the way, you can also find infographics on if you Google for images infographics about the particular court system that you're looking at, for example, the federal court system or the state court system, and that should help you too. You can upload the pictures here if need be. We are now on page 34, and right here you have to answer the following question. How does judicial activism compare to judicial restraint? The definitions for judicial activism should be in the previous slides, and also for judicial restraint. If you cannot find them, you can also search online and make sure that you use the information that you get from there and put it in your own words. Do not just copy and paste. Make sure you put it in your own words. We are now on page 40, the judicial branch tutorial, and this is the lesson activity, landmark cases. And let's go over the directions so you'll know what to do. Read the instructions for this self-check activity, type in your response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of the activity, write a brief evaluation of your work. And this is the activity question 1. When deciding a case, the Supreme Court must consider whether it will uphold the ruling of a lower court or overturn that ruling. In upholding the ruling of another court, it follows a precedent. The idea of precedent originated in the English legal system with the concept stare decisis, which means let the decision stand. The role of the Supreme Court is to decide on the legality or constitutionality of important cases, usually cases that have come from lower courts. These cases often receive a significant amount of discussion because of the way that a Supreme Court decision carries. And by the way, I strongly suggest, in order to answer questions here, that you click on this link over here, Plessy v. Ferguson, as it will help you answer the questions. So, Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, was a landmark Supreme Court decision in which the court upheld the president of a lower court. Review this case and answer the following questions. Question A. What were the background circumstances of Plessy v. Ferguson? Again, you have to click on this link. Make sure you're taking notes when you click on that link for the information that's being given to you, and that will help you provide some background information. What was going on? What brought this case, Plessy v. Ferguson, to the Supreme Court? Why is it important? Part B is basically asking, what was the court's majority opinion in Plessy v. Ferguson? What happened? How did the court come up with a decision that has impacted, and it did impact at that particular time, the entire history of the nation? Make sure you're providing on all of these answers at least a solid paragraph. And when I say a solid paragraph, I mean at least 5 good sentences that explain what is going on. Part C is saying, what was the court's dissenting opinion in Plessy v. Ferguson? Again, it goes back to what you have read about this particular case already. Part D is saying, did the court make the right decision in Plessy v. Ferguson? Why or why not? Make sure to include more modern interpretations of the ruling in your answer. Based on the reading that you did on Plessy v. Ferguson, now you need to provide a good, I would say, explanation as to why the court made either the right decision or the wrong decision. Don't just say, oh, the court made the wrong decision. You have to explain why the court made the wrong decision. And obviously, you need to make reference to modern interpretations of that particular ruling. So in this case, we need at least a good paragraph. Question 2 says, Plessy v. Ferguson is an example of a case in which the Supreme Court decided to uphold the ruling of a lower case. At other times, the court overturns a ruling that was made by a lower court or even by a previous Supreme Court. Review the case Gideon versus Wainwright, 1963, and answer the following question. What is the background of Gideon v. Wainwright? Please make sure that you click on this link, take the appropriate notes, and you should be able to answer this question here. What was going on? Why did the court decide to take on this particular case? What was the significance of this particular case that the Supreme Court said, I will hear this case? Part B says, what was the court's majority opinion in Gideon v. Wainwright? Make sure you provide that information just like the previous case. Part C says, did the court make the right decision in Gideon v. Wainwright? Why or why not? Please make sure that you are providing solid explanation, not just like a simple answer, yes or no, but make sure you're answering. A good solid paragraph will do here. Make sure that for all of your answers, and this is mandatory, you are answering with evidence. Do not just throw an answer yes or no. Make sure that you are saying, I fully believe that you're capable of getting the best grade possible if you follow what I'm telling you to do. And you have a good one. Please continue to work hard.